Hey, I'm here with Siren Craft Brew Head Brewer Sean, and today we're going to talk about Project Barista. So, first beer up is Dry Bones, 6.6% dry IPA. Sean, tell us about the origins of this idea.
So the idea came from a member of our brew team. It was to try capture kind of the lime and zesty character that some coffees can have, normally high altitude coffees. So we worked with Origin Coffee on that, and we chose a dry IPA as the kind of beer to showcase the coffee in. So we basically want to dry the beer out as much as we can, and then coffee we look for is having some lime character as well as some citrus and a bit of honey. What we wanted to showcase in some of these coffees. So we added some orange blossom honey and orange zest and orange juice to back the coffee up, and then loaded a bunch of coffee in with a bit of oak wood as well to bring out some vanilla and some tannins.
How did the coffee selecting process go with this? Did you have like the idea of a certain coffee that would bring those notes?
Yeah, we had a coffee idea around a yoga chef, I think coffee what it was, and we wanted to try to find something close to that. So Origin proposed a few coffees to us, and we settled on one of their brands called Pathfinder.
Nice. So over the years with Project Barista, we've used coffee in a ton of different ways. How did we use the coffee in this particular beer?
So generally use the spin bot as much as we can. It helps. It's a great infusion vessel. It allows us to extract flavors. One of the main things we were looking at with this is trying to use a blend of ground beans and a blend of whole beans. There's a bit of theory in using coffee and beer that if you use the whole bean, you extract the kind of top notes and the coffee kind of flavors of the lime side and the raspberry and the zesty side of it. So we did a blend of ground and whole beans for that, and then the ground beans are just to give the coffee punch.
Nice. Okay. If you want to know more about the Spinbot, check out the Siren Craft Brew blog. The coffee additions, at what point was this all Spinbot, or was there any sort of early additions at all?
It was all Spinbot at the end of, I think we added a little bit, 5 kilos in the boil. At the end of the boil, just basically dipped it in when we're transferring to the whirlpool, and then put the rest of it into the Spinbot. We didn't want to pick up too much color because we got a really light base for this. So we used some fructose, some rice in this just to really lighten the color, to make sure the coffee doesn't pick up too much.
Yeah, it's a really gorgeous looking beer as well. So I'm guessing you didn't want too heavy a coffee, like to, infuse with the IPA, because you still want this to be an IPA. So hops playing a big deal here?
Because it's an IPA, like I said, I wanted to use the kind of newer hops, the Neo Mexicanos, Sabro, Talus, bit of El Dorado, just to kind of get a little bit of that, what everyone kind of calls coconut, but I think you can add a creaminess and and then also they're also quite tropical when you get them in the right combination. So a little bit of that, and like helping support the orange zest and the orange honey. So
you added more orange and more honey as well. So you've got honey notes coming through in the coffee and the zesty citrus in the coffee, but then there's actual orange zest and honey as well.
So orange blossom honey that we source, that's really we've used it in a few beers and has a real nice character, but it ferments right out, so it sticks with the dry character of the beer.
How are you thinking about the final product?
I think it's great. I think it doesn't taste like a dry beer because the alcohol adds sweetness. There's character from the honey. The coffee also has, one of the characters it has is butter, and it's almost like that, like rich, almost like fatty sweetness that it brings into the beer that kind of helps like bring the beer like from not tasting completely bone dry.
It's so drinkable.
Yeah.
Because you still get that hop character with the the sort of there's all the Sabro coming through as well, but it's not overpowering.
Yeah.
And you can taste it's a coffee beer, but it's not like you go, oh, that tastes like a coffee. It's really nicely balanced.
Yeah.
And that dryness at the end just
Yeah.
kind of keeps you coming back.
And that's what the base of the beer is, and then everything kind of builds up from that. So you pick up all the other characters from the coffee, from the honey, from the orange zest.
Nice. Success. Well, that's Dry Bones. Cheers, Sean. I'm happy with that. Okay, so this is Stomping Grounds 6.3% red ale. Straight out of the bat, Sean, why a red ale?
Again, it was suggested from someone in the team, and it's kind of one of those ideas that came up where we just went, well, we've never done a red ale with coffee, so why not go for it? So
Seems like a fairly, now I've drunk this beer, it seems like a fairly natural fit to have coffee in a red ale.
yeah, and I think you got a balance of malt and hops
Yeah.
quite tightly in red ales or red IPAs. So bringing in coffee into it is a nice kind of mix. And we've been doing a few batches of liquid mistress in the last couple of years with our 10th anniversary. So
I don't think we can talk about Red Beer Siren without mentioning Liquid Mistress.
Yeah.
And it's the thing that everyone always wants to see. Beautiful red colour on that. So was there much of a sort of Liquid Mistress inspiration behind the recipe and the background to this beer?
I went back to some of the old recipes of liquid mistress and kind of try to have a look at what we'd use, what malts we'd use, and go back to a bit of that. So kind of built on the original basis of liquid mistress for the malt base of this beer.
So Stomping Grounds, talk us through that name, where that comes from, and the coffee that's been in this beer.
Cool, I think we start with the coffee. So we used Hardlines as the roaster for this. Hardlines is a firm favourite in a few members of our team. Some of them even on their subscription. Great coffee roasters, great passion. Project Barista is a great project because we see coffee roasters who have the exact same passion for coffee as we have for beer.
Yeah.
So it's always a great project to work with roasters, and worked quite closely with Matt from Hardlines on this, and I went down to visit him. And we did what's a unique or a standard process in the coffee industry for evaluating your coffee and your roast. It's called cupping. So we cupped a various amount of coffees, and this Kalimbo natural coffee came out really different to the others.
Right.
And it was quite unique in the cupping process that we did. Like normally for me, because I'm new to doing that process, I find a lot of just, this smells like coffee, that smells like coffee, and starting to like get some of the unique flavors. But with this one, it was just really unique, like a nice orange tangerine character came through. And talking to Matt, he talks about how when they roast this coffee, you just get the whole room apparently fills up with like a nice orange kind of aroma, orange zest kind of aroma. So
now you say orange, like all I can taste is orange.
Yeah.
Is that coming through from the hops that you used, or is this
coffee and the
purely
hops?
coffee?
But yeah, I think so. The other thing with this coffee is it's quite a high-end coffee because it's gone through the natural process.
Right.
So natural coffee process has a downside. It takes a lot longer. It can take weeks for the coffee to be dried. It's all done by hand, naturally in the sun, but it creates a much more unique flavor, which we definitely find in this coffee.
Wow.
So you get, it's the same as like certain kind of malting. If you use floor malting, it takes longer, it's more labor intensive, but the end product can be a lot better. So it really showed through in the cupping session. And so we went with this great story that also Hardlines worked really close with this coffee producer in Rwanda, and everything's done by hand, naturally carried all. I think they use boats across the lake to move the coffee beans once they've been picked, and then they went out there and they helped with the actual processing. I think there's a part of the process of natural coffee where you're stamping on the beans or the cherries to break the shells, and they got involved in that, and that's where the name Stomping Ground comes from.
It's it's a really good pun on like coffee grounds, and this being our area, your old stomping ground, and obviously the process. That's really cool. And as I said, it comes through in the beer like surprisingly well. Again, it's not overbearing the coffee. This is one of those ones where I would liken it to onion in a bolognese sauce. You're not going to taste that sauce and go, don't taste the onion. But if it wasn't there, you'd really miss it. And it works so well like that.
Yeah, and I think, we're putting in like 30 kilos of coffee. Broken Dream, for example, has 5 kilos of coffee.
Right.
And we're doing it in the spin pot, agitating it. So the coffee's there, but we're really selecting coffees that give those like higher aroma notes and flavor notes that you don't necessarily get when you roast coffee hot. So it's like what you're getting from cold brew coffee. We kind of extracting that into the beer. So,
and was this again the combination of whole bean and ground coffee in the spin pot?
We did a little bit of whole bean on this, but it wasn't the focus. We got some in on the hot side to get the coffee note, and then we laid in a nice bunch in the spin pot and spun it. We have to spin the coffee and then add the hops afterwards. So we got the coffee where we wanted it from taste, and then pushed everything back into the fermenter and dry hopped from there.
How much did you want hops to play in this, or is this just purely all about that orange notes from the coffee?
I think it's a red IPA, so we got to get that, or red ale. Like we always want the hops to play on the top there.
Yeah.
So hops kind of supporting that citrus and orange character.
Yeah. There's a really nice coffee like richness to the aroma.
Yeah.
Which is great. It smells like a cold cup of coffee, and then when you come in, you just get this sort of big, like burnt orange citrusness. It's great.
And we find coffee when we're spinning it in the spin pot cold, you get a bit of a biscuit kind of character, which we wanted to match with the roast and the malt that we got in there. So you can find that kind of biscuit character when you look when you go in with your nose and search for it.
Now we're going back to Liquid Mistress with biscuit and burnt raisin.
Yeah.
Excellent. Great beer, Sean. Thanks very much for that. Cheers. Okay, so this is Viva Patron, 8% dark ale. So Sean, tell us about the inspiration behind this beer.
I think the coffee tequila Cafe Patron was an inspiration for this. There's been a few nights out where we've ended up with a few shots of that, and it's just a nice, like, you wouldn't think tequila and coffee work, and actually really does. So there was inspiration behind it. I'd love to barrel age a beer like this in some tequila barrels, but that's maybe the next step, and this was just kind of having a go at it.
I don't actually know this. Has any of this gone into barrel?
No, we've got I'll talk about it just now.
Next time.
A good wood supply.
So talking of barrel aging, this is a dark ale. Here at Siren we have a stock dark ale recipe. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I'd call it a stock dark ale recipe, but it's our. I went back to Dark and Perilous Nights, which is our highest rated beer, and took inspiration from that recipe, kind of trying to create a dark ale. Like, it's a smaller version, it's at 8%, so it's quite different to the big, thick mouthfeel that we'll get from the barrel aging process, but like a dark ale, you're kind of losing that bodybuilding thing you're trying to build in stouts and porters, and just trying to get like a nice rich flavor without too much of the filling body and mouthfeel. Yeah,
it's definitely big and rich, but you also get those chocolate notes as well. So is there any like a cow or anything in this, or is that just purely malts?
It's just malts, so we use pale chocolate just to get a bit of the kind of chocolate malty character, and then use things like Carafa 3, which like we do for black IPA, kind of we put that on the mash bed, and then some cinema, which just gives color with minimizing the roast, and then we also use some muscovado sugar to kind of create a bit of the back sweetness in the beer. Yeah, it's really good. So coffee wise, we went with Clemson and Sons, which we have quite a good working relationship with. Obviously it's the Baron from Clemson's and Sons, which is in Broken Dream. It's also in our staff coffee pots every morning. It really does, it's the lifeblood of Siren Craft Brew. So So this was quite a unique thing when we were kind of researching roasters to work with. Clemson's is always high up on the list to work with, but what they've done as a company, they separated out a little subsection within Clemson to create a product they call Midnight Oil, which is essentially it's a cold brew. They do it when we went to go visit them. They basically got a 5-barrel brewery that they're brewing this on. So they're making a cold brew, or it's a hot brew in what would look like a mash tun, and then they're running that through a heat exchanger and cooling it down quickly to lock the cool flavors in.
Wow.
And I think they run that twice through grounds of coffee. So I think he said it was the Midnight Oil liquid is 3/4 of an espresso shot, so it's quite strong stuff, and it looked like a great product to use. We hadn't used it before. We played around with cold brew, but this is like almost like they've made it warm and then cooled it down really quickly through a heat exchanger, which is a very similar process to what we do with wort. So it was quite fun to play with. They made us a batch of 150 liters that we could then put into the we put in the whirlpool just to make sure we pasteurize it, but cooled that down straight away and sent it to the fermenter.
Nice. So, like coffee edition wise, just whirlpool, or was there any later on as well?
Yeah, and just linking back to Baron, the Midnight Oil's made from Baron, as their coffee.
Nice.
For that. So yeah, we put that in and then sent it to the fermenter with the batch of wort and fermented it like that.
So with the previous beers, we've talked about the flavours that the coffee is bringing to this beer, and coffee definitely comes through in this, but it's a tequila-inspired beer. So where is this tequila coming from? Because on the nose, on the mouth, you're getting tequila, and it's grand.
So we also used a bit of agave syrup to just kind of like give a little background character to the beer for that, and then we work with a really good wood supplier from the States. They basically can take old barrels and chip the inside of the barrels up, so you get this really wet chipped barrel wood. And they've also got a proprietary process where they take oak wood cubes, they're about that big, and they infuse them. So we've used gin ones before, we've used bourbon ones, used maple ones as well that they've done.
In the spin bottle?
Yeah, and they infuse tequila into those wood chips. And then when we had a combination of the wood chips and the wood cubes in the spin bot, you create this tequila character, which is really good.
Yeah, so you really are getting a tequila character. So that's literally just coming out of that oak, which also brings an oaky nature to it.
Yeah. So the vanilla, the tannins. So it's an 8% beer as well, and the alcohol brings a lot of sweetness into that as well. So kind of balancing all these things with a bit of the coffee, vanilla, the alcohol and the body of the beer, trying to balance that all.
There's so much going on.
Yeah.
Like, who came up with the idea of a tequila beer?
I think it was, I've liked the idea of it for a while, but because so many people on the team have enjoyed Cafe Patron, which I think has now come back. They took it away for a while, and it's back, so it's a perfect time to launch this beer.
Yep. Were you nervous about taking that on as a project?
No, I was really keen for it. I think this won't be the last time we see coffee and tequila at Siren. I think we'll play around with it in other ways as well.
Yeah, it works really well.
Yeah.
Great. Well, that's Viva Patron. Cheers, Sean. Really enjoying that again.
Cheers. Yeah, enjoy.
Nice one. So, last but not least, this is Mucha Mora Mocha, 9% Imperial Stout, which many people are going to mispronounce. Mucha, Mora, Mocha. We're going to get a lot of that, I think. So this was actually Mucha Mocha before. Last time we did Project Barista. So why did we go back to Mucha Mocha to do Mucha Mora Mocha?
I think Project Barista wouldn't be Project Barista with a big Imperial Stout in it. And one of the ideas was, can we bring some more to Mucha Mocha from what we learned from the CCC project we did, long
So
boil,
this is
building more body.
the not CCC is in Caribbean chocolate cake, but CCC
Yeah.
is in charm and curiosity, etc.
Yeah.
So they were all about long boils. I think one of them was 24 hours, which
Yeah,
had
yeah.
you in the brewery overnight.
Yeah.
What did we do here?
So we did a 10-hour boil on this. I think
Mm-hmm.
we don't need to push it much further than that. We've also used more adjuncts, more sugars.
One mash, two mashes.
Yeah, we were looking at doing a third mash to build some volume back, but actually we decided to just do the 2 mashes, get the good boil,
Yeah.
build the body in it, and so yeah, we ended up with this. It's really high finishing Plato, which means it's a lot more dense than most of the beers we produce, most of the stouts we produce.
So there's a stat doing the rounds that a pallet of this beer would be 100 kilograms heavier than a pallet of Lumina
Yeah, yeah, just because of
in
the
440 cans.
because the density of the beer is just that much higher. That 440 ml can weighs just under 500 grams.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So obviously we went back to Mocha, but this isn't Mocha. It's a sort of a different take on it. What have we done differently?
Well, adding the longer boil, adding a bit more cacao and a bit more coffee to it, but also we worked with coffee all the way through the process.
Right.
So we added coffee at every stage of the process,
Okay.
which we played around with a little bit in Mocha, but this time we did it more, and we layered it in using a combination of different grinds, different beans. If it's going to be in contact with the beer for a short period of time, we could grind it quite fine. If it's going to be in contact for a longer period, we could have it even all the way up to beans, because of the extraction process. So we played around with that a bit. We spun it a bit longer on the coffee to extract more. You get that real rich kind of character of the coffee coming through, quite strong, quite pungent, and then nice, really kind of like high and dark chocolate in the background for the mocha. When we went to select the coffee with Anonymous, he made us a mocha with a special chocolate sauce that he makes for his mochas in their little cafe, and it was really rich chocolate, so went for that.
It reminds me a bit of Bourbon Turkish, which is a barista beer from the past, in the fact that it's got that sort of that thickness and that coffee richness, but then a big burst of sweetness from sort of chocolates and sugars and whatnot.
Yeah.
So how sugars playing into this beer?
So we used just some dextrose sugar to help make sure we ferment it. When you do these really long boils, you complex the sugars and make it really hard to ferment, so we got to get a bit of dextrose in there, easy fermenting. We added some muscovado, which adds more richness.
Yeah.
And then we got lactose in there to smooth out a different kind of sweetness.
You mentioned Anonymous Coffee. We've got a long relationship with Phil from Anonymous Coffee, going back to I think 2017.
Yeah, I think even further back. Yeah,
Further back.
When he worked as a previous roaster somewhere, we worked with him.
Yes.
So he's been working with us for years. But as Anonymous, I've known him since I've been here, and he's always been great to talk about coffee and beer. He's really passionate about it. So
local heroes, and set up the coffee in our flagship Reading bar, etc. And we use his coffee downstairs in the tap yard. What's this sort of coffee bringing to this beer? Because in the previous ones we've talked about like the honey and the orange and stuff, but this is just such a big beer with so many things to find. Like, how was the coffee selection process?
So we went and did a cupping session with Phil to just kind of select coffee, and he's got a kind of his main brand is called No Name, and I think he varies it up a little bit, different blends of coffee, so that stood out really nicely in the cupping. But there was a Colombian coffee that he had that we all really liked and thought it was slightly different to the rest, so we used the majority of the hot side coffee as the Colombian, and then we've used No Name because that's the coffee that we use, and also stood up really well in the cupping session. So the Colombian is in the No Name product, but we used a bit of Colombian just on the hot side, just to give a point of difference there.
Nice. So you mentioned 5 kilograms of coffee in a Broken Dream, 30 kilograms of coffee in, I think you said, Stomping Grounds. How much have we got on this?
Went up to 80.
80.
So 20 on the hot side, 60 in the Spinbot. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But it's still like not overwhelmingly coffee. It's really well balanced.
A big beer like this, if you look at it like as a room of people like shouting, if everyone's making a lot of noise,
Yeah.
you need to be that bit louder to be heard. And so we have to raise the coffee amount in a beer like this. Whereas Dry Bones, you can consider that probably quite a quiet room, and a little bit of coffee goes a long way in that beer.
Okay, that's a nice analogy.
Yeah.
I've heard that before, and I enjoy that. Excellent. So, do we have a future with Mucha Mora Mocha? We've done it once before, Mucha Mocha. Now we've got Mucha Mora Mocha. Is there going to be another one?
I think there's lots of options with it. It's a great base as a beer. I've still got some cans at home of Mucha Mocha. I had one this weekend after the Barista Festival when I got home, and it tastes really good still. So yeah, I think it's a little project we can keep working on, and maybe move around different coffee kind of
Do different things. We could bring tea into the process with Matcha Mora Mocha has been suggested. I think you said it before filming, you don't know what matcha is, and I love that.
I'm not a big tea drinker now.
But if you've got an idea for this beer, then please put it in the comments. Sean, this is superb, like at 9% as well. It's thick, it's oily, it's ridiculous.
I'm really enjoying making these beers that taste a lot bigger, but are at like 8, 9, even 10%, and they actually, I think you have a bit more drinkability, you have a bit more control with your fermentation, and I think the body that it leaves behind is great in these beers. I don't feel we need to go much higher for some of the beers like this.
Love it. Thanks, Sean. Cheers.
Cheers.
So, if all of this has been quite new to you, a little bit about Project Barista. It started in 2017, and it's literally just our way to brew with coffee in a variety of ways using different roasters. Over the years, we've had a number of different beers that you might recognise. Caffeine, affogato, cold brew, bourbon Turkish is always one that comes up. Sean, you haven't done a massive amount of Project Barista since you've been here. But I think we've done 5 overall. It started out annually, I think 2017, 18, 19, and then we kind of slowed down on it a bit. What's the future for Project Barista? Is this something that you want to brew more of?
I think it's always fun to, like I said, working with roasters who are as passionate about coffee as we are about beer. I think we probably, I don't know if this is factual, but we probably want one of the breweries in the world that have used coffee in more ways than any other brewery. And it's fun to kind of try new things. Spinbot's great, but we also use lots of other ways through this project of getting coffee into beer, different styles. So, you know, normally if you're going to start out making a coffee beer, you're probably going to go for a dark beer or stout. It's quite fun to play with coffee and sour beers and things like that. So
that's probably Caffeine is probably one of my favourite ever siren beers. Like, I joined in 2018 and went straight into Project Barista, and we had the hibiscus sour with coffee, and it was like this red sour beer that had like coffee notes. Absolutely fantastic. So if we can bring that back, where would you like to take it? Would you like to bring things back, like things like cold brew or affogato again, or are you just looking for fresh ideas?
I think, like, we always like fresh ideas. It's always great to bring some of the old good beers back. Affogato is a great example of that. I think, like, there's still potential for more interaction with the roasters, and you know, we could look at like roasting malt in a coffee roaster, like things like that we haven't explored yet. And I think there's a few other things that we still haven't touched yet. So I think it has quite a bit of life in it still. But I think every year it's up to kind of us to think about every few years works quite nicely.
Yeah, amen. All right, well, thanks, Sean.
Cool.
Really, really interesting hearing about the processes behind these beers. Check out sirencraftbeer.com for more on Project Barista. And from me to you, I hope it will be back, because I love these beers. Thank you.
Cool, thanks.